I was trying to figure out the Instagram.
Breaking 50.
That's it. I guess it was.
Probably already had like 9 or 10. Okay. Where'd you go? The bathroom had changed. I don't know why. I don't know why I like changing anywhere else but the gym. I didn't want to like walk in the gym with like a polo on and stuff. It's weird. I don't know. So I just changed here.
If you find early pieces and you're like it's so good. I love it. It's so much fun, but it's so frustrating. You go up 6 times. Especially when it gets dark out. There's no lights out there. So you like you just have your phone. Like maybe like you're running the maze at night trying to find it. I'm not leaving. I've been there for 2 hours already. Like it's a huge base. Or it just stays. I have to take it out. So you went to 10K.
It kept me up for like 4 nights. I
feel like you're trying to turn it into a chart.
Right? Is that stupid?
Alright, so this is a picture, right? And you're trying to be able to type in numbers and the only thing I always
So well known.
or maybe just
So did you, have you read any of
get it.
I started looking at them, but not
Okay,
really
did
solid.
you know, so I didn't choose one out. Do you know that's what it means? You know that? Did you know when Hamlet was developed, like when it was founded?
Like, it's not letting you edit this.
Yeah. 1869.
Wow.
But like,
Because you know, when I went to undergrad,
reach for the big
when I
chart.
finished undergrad, I went to San Francisco.
How much does it say for certain?
And everybody was, it was at night, even though it was undergrad, so everybody was an adult. I don't think, I was 32 when I started, 31 finished. So everybody was the age bracket, and everything
Can you make
after
this
college.
4,500 calories
Did you ever read the book,
It might not be perfect, but you might be able to
The
adjust.
Gospel According to the Heart Medicine School? You should read it. It was written in 1976. And that's what I wanted to say.
Like control.
Harvard undergrad, Harvard Law School. Did you say that you thought I was illiterate because I was
The paper?
And I read that book. It had just come out.
I did the one last night. Huh?
No, you didn't.
Save it. Can you save the image maybe?
Yeah,
it was difficult. It's like, what? I'm confused. What are we talking about?
Asking you started this
It's
because
a, it,
it's smaller, just
but it's very effective at creating critical
and
thinking.
then
It's difficult.
Shift S. Yeah, in Windows Shift S, and see if it brings up. This one, so like.
That is copy and paste. That's copy and paste. I was about to say, I was like, how can I do that? I was like, I did it. I'll never get it right over.
Anyway, I was very pleased.
I almost
I
should
was
my person went to
and
Like
It is, thank goodness.
they've been snipping
Almost progress you make, not where you start.
You know where you would like search for internet explorer, like there, it's like
It hasn't even started yet. I know, I'm still, I don't know. I think that's even 12. This is has to do with but I think it is. I'm waiting for someone on your call. Huh?
fun, buddy.
drag and capture. Try command shift.
You never say no. You.
All right, when she gets started, is it 6:01? All right, it's good to see those who are here. We're still a little wondering where everybody might be. That's okay. We're going to get started. We do have a good amount of material to cover tonight. Tonight's topic is gaining advantages or marketing advantages through innovation. And this is actually a really big topic, big concept. There's a lot of material in it. And so that's where we'll kind of get started. We'll do a good amount with some notes here. We'll do some other activities, and we'll look at an article from this week, which is kind of interesting, I think. We'll just see what it has to say. We'll go from there. This is the first week from the last 4 or 5 that we have the cameras working in here, so I can record. So I'll be able to post tonight's lecture if you want to look at it again, or for those who aren't here, they'll have access to it. So that'll help them. I hope y'all are doing well. You guys doing okay? All right, good. It's good to see everybody that is here. So we're going to talk about innovation tonight. And this is a pretty broad topic, and there are a lot of pieces to it that you might find interesting. We'll start with the definition and focus on what we might think innovation is. And it's one of these ideas where innovation varies by person, in the sense that if something is new to you, then it may be perceived as innovative. So that can be expanded to multiple market segments. If a market segment has a product that's introduced to them, they've never seen it before, it's new to them, then that would be innovative. That would be an innovation for them. So it's something that's perceived to be new. It doesn't necessarily have to be new to the world, right? But if it's new to the audience, then it's something that they will find intriguing, unusual, unlike other things that's out there. So this kind of gets us started a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about kind of different types of innovation in products and how we produce products and some of the steps involved with that. So everything focused tonight is on newness. And so one way we can think about newness that translates into something real and how we perceive something as being new is its degree of what we call discontinuity. And this is actually one of a product or innovation characteristic. We're going to look at 5 or 6 other innovation characteristics as well. But discontinuity is a concept that is, I think, very well linked to the degree of newness you may perceive an innovation to have. Discontinuity as a concept exists, or it is manifested when we look at something new and it causes us to change. And it causes us to change or do something different. It modifies our behavior. So if an innovation, new product, something comes along, a new service, and if we're going to adopt the new product or the new service, if in the adoption of the new product, it causes us to change or modify our behavior, then we would call that discontinuous. In other words, our behavior has been interrupted in some way that it normally is as a result of adopting this product. At the other end of the spectrum, if, for instance, we don't have discontinuous over there, great behavioral change, I should have put that up first. If on the other hand, we look at a new product and it fits into our lifestyle, if it's something that we accommodate, if adopting it won't disrupt us in too many ways, then we would think of this product as continuous. Okay, so this is the kind of the range or the model of discontinuity when it comes to behavioral change and how we perceive new things in our lives and new things that are in the market and new things that could revolutionize the world. So So just bear that in mind, that this is a good way to think of newness. The degree to which it causes us to change, to make modifications. Okay, so hold on to that thought. We're going to come back to a few more characteristics of innovation here in a few minutes, but this leads us to new products and products as innovations. And what would newness be if we thought of it in the context of issuing a new way to solve a problem for customers? Okay, so there are a number of different ways we define new products or newness in products themselves. Oops. Oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot I had this extra slide on here. I moved a few things around in my notes, so I should probably look before I leave, right? So discontinuity. Key point here is that as you consider a newness or product as something that changes your behavior, the greater to which it does that, the slower it'll adopt. Now, this is kind of common sense. If you put a new product out there and you expect people to modify their behavior a lot in order to adopt it, then it's going to take longer for people to subsequently buy it, and it'll carry on, stuff like that. I mean, look at electric vehicles. Like one of the fundamental challenges with electric vehicles is that you have to charge the vehicle, you have to go to charging stations or charge in your home, and you have to maybe think about how that's going to work on trips. And that's a pretty significant change in behavior compared to what we're used to, what we've grown up with, and what we know is the process of going to a gas pump, filling up your gas, and that comfort level that we have there. So that anxiety, that tension, that uncertainty that's associated with that change in behavior is one factor that is slowing down the adoption rate of that particular product. Okay, so like anything that does that is going to slow, it'll have a negative impact on the rate of adoption. This also happens with companies as well, though. I'm talking a lot at the start here with markets and consumers, but think also at the other level, if a company tries something new and it involves them to change a lot, if it involves them to do something that's out of their comfort zone, then it'll be slow to adopt with the company as well. Companies that are switching, I don't know why, this semester's been focused on electric vehicles, sorry. But Ferrari is going to be launching their electric vehicle in 2027, I think, or maybe next year, but maybe 2027. And they've built a big, huge factory, all their processes are changing, everything they're doing is changing, and you can imagine it would be slow for a company to jump into that product category because they themselves will have to change a lot, right? So the firm experiences this change as well as consumers. Okay, so just kind of pocket that away, that concept of discontinuity, and it's kind of a valuable way to think about newness and innovation. Okay, now, new products. How do we define them, or how can we characterize this in the newness sense? There are a number of different, I think there are 6 different categories of new products. One type of new product would be something called new to the world. These don't represent a huge number percentage-wise of new products. There is a term out there called really new, believe it or not, really new products. It's not very sophisticated, but new to the world products. These are innovations that haven't ever been seen before. They haven't ever been put out in the market before. They will create markets. They will create new industries. They will be, there'll be big, huge shifts. There'll be disruptive innovations within spaces typically. It's like a brand new way to do something would be a new to the world type of a product. And they fundamentally, if they're adopted, they fundamentally change the direction of an entire product category, right? Beyond what it is now. These are pretty rare. If you have one of these in a lifetime, that's enormous. I mean, these are just rare in general. Okay, new to the firm products, kind of talked about this already, where this might be a product that, a product that's out there in the market, somebody makes it, it's already in a market, but a firm decides that they will also create and produce this product of their own for themselves. And they'll sell it, and it'll be under their brand. It's a new product to the world and a new product in the market. People haven't ever seen this brand with this product before, but they've seen this product out here. So I don't know what a good example would be, but you can just imagine products already exists, and a company comes along that's never produced it before. Yeti comes along and produces a cooler. Coolers have always existed, but Yeti's, it's maybe new to that company, and the market sees it as a new product or a new thing that's out there that's available to them. Okay, additions to product lines, product line extensions. Okay, so these often are modifications to existing products, products that already exist for a company. A company already has a product, and they're going to make modifications to the product. They're going to do something different to it to create variety and variations for their consumers. Lots of new products that hit the market are these types of things. They tend to be fairly low risk in general because the company already has a consumer base, already market made for it. They'll have brand recognition out there for the product. And the cost associated with creating variations tends to be fairly low in the big scheme of things. It's not like you're creating all new technology necessarily, but you're adapting technology you already have to create some new variation of your product. So additions to existing product lines. Cool, so we see these all the time again, and these may fail a lot too. I mentioned like Frito-Lay may come out with 15 different potato chip versions this next year, and 12 of them might fail. But, you know, that's okay to them because that cost, the incremental cost of creating those products, isn't that bad. And there's a lot of ways they can innovate and create new variations, and so they do. Okay. Another way we can think about newness are innovations in updating, refreshing, improving products that we already have, that already exist. So we're not necessarily creating a new product that would create a new cash flow for us. We're taking an existing product and we're making it better. Right? So it's new and improved. Right? How many times do we see a new and improved product out there? Absolutely. These happen a lot as well. Now again, you're like, well, is that innovation? Well, if it's perceived as new or different to the consumer or to the company, right, then it would have some level of innovation or newness associated with it. You may not think of it as, you know, a lot of times when we think of a new product, we think of something that's brand new to the world, but those only represent a very small percentage of total products that are out there. Okay, repositionings. These are super fun and interesting in and of themselves. So repositionings happen when you take an existing product and you find a new purpose or use for it in a different market. Okay, the classic example that I can never forget is baking soda, baking powder, baking soda, right? That, you know, how much baking soda do you think people use in baking nowadays? If you're baking something, how much baking soda is used?
Teaspoons.
How long, if you're baking, how long does a box of baking soda last you? Years. I mean, years and years. So if I'm at Arm & Hammer and I'm thinking about, hey, you know, let's figure out how we can get people to buy more baking soda. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't we convince them that they can put it in their refrigerator as a deodorizer and eliminate smells in the fridge, and then that way they're using a whole box at a time. Perfect. We'll double our sales like that, right? People will be using every time they put it in the fridge, it'll be using up a whole bunch. So it's a repositioning, it's a new purpose for an existing product, but it's also importantly finding a new market. And by market, I mean a new purpose. So if you're buying it as a deodorizer, you're using it to meet that specific need and want. If you're buying it to bake a cake, you're buying it for that specific need and want. So we have two different needs being met by the same product. And so we could say these are two different markets. Same person may be buying for two different reasons, but they're buying for two different reasons. So that's why that kind of works that way. Okay. And then finally a thing called cost reductions. This one here we may not see as consumers particularly often, and it may be hard to conceptualize a cost reduction as a new product or innovation. But if you're from the firm's perspective and you find ways to become more efficient and create your product, maybe through different sourcing of materials or different product processes for production, if you can lower your costs, then it creates some great competitive advantages for you. And you may be inclined to pass that savings on to your customers. So your customers may see change in the product in the sense that it may have a lower price. By reducing your price, customers see that, and they will probably associate different connotations of quality, but they'll also be comparing your new price to the competitors. And there'll be a relational change that happens in context to those.
But you couldn't think of one example for that.
Of cost reductions?
The dupes need cost reductions?
Oh, you know what? Dupes is kind of close to it, aren't they? That's super. Probably is. You know, dupes are an interesting category because they're not illegal. They're not trying to steal brand identities. They're not claiming they're something they're not. That's not a dupe strategy. A dupe strategy is not to be a poser and try to pretend you are something else other than what you are. What you're copying, and I use that term carefully, what you're imitating or copying are the effects or qualities of that higher brand's products. So if Lululemon's products perform at a certain level, then the goal of a dupe is to have a product that also performs at that level. And you could say, this outfit performs like Lululemon. Now, you may not say that because you wouldn't want to mention Lululemon's name, but you're not copying their technology, you're not copying their name, you're not copying their logos, you're not infringing on their rights in any way. That's not the strategy. But they're certainly at a lower price. Yeah, for sure. For sure. That would be a great example of that. I'm going to have to start using that. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. So newness, innovation, new products. That's kind of what we're talking about as we move into this. When we're doing product development, there are a number of different features or attributes or characteristics we might think of that products possess. In a basic sense, and this is a very basic sense, products often have three sort of conditions, or sometimes we call them layers, if you will. There's a core, there's an actual, and then there's an augmented component to products when we're designing them or thinking about them. And when we're thinking about newness, this actually matters because we're going to make changes to those. So a core product, or is the core value or the essential value that's being delivered to the product, the consumer as a result of the product. So a car's core product is transportation, or moving people or things from one place to another. That's its function. That's what it does. People buy cars so that they can be transported, typically, at its core, at its fundamental level. Now, what are they buying? They're actually buying a physical thing. They're buying the metal and the rubber and the engine and all the things that it does mechanically and the color of it and the brand. They're buying a physical thing so that they can receive the core benefit that that physical thing delivers. So a lot of the time, new to the world products change how the core is delivered. Like, that's why they're so invaluable. That's why they're so rare. Because a new to the world product will change how the fundamental core is being satisfied. Other than, apart from how technologies that already satisfy that need. Where you see a ton of variation, though, is in the physical elements that you actually buy that deliver that core. When you drive down the road, I don't know if you've ever done this before, it's kind of crazy. You drive down the road, you try to, every car you see is, almost every single one of them is a little bit different from the one next to it. It's so rare you see two cars, two makes, two models, two vehicles, exact same color, exact same style, exact same everything, right? At any given time. At any given time when you're driving down the road. Next time you're driving around, you'll notice this. There's so much variety, and those are all changes in the physical, the physical vehicle, the physical product that's being delivered. Okay, so there's the core level, there's the physical level of the car, and then there are things called augmentations. Augmentations are this third level of a product, and they tend to be elements we include that are services or value-added features that help you operate and use the product better. They might include warranties. They might include additional service help online. They might include all kinds of these service-type things that make it easier to use the product or more accessible to use the product. And again, if we want to, you got two companies, they got two products that are essentially the same thing, but you want to differentiate yourself from the other, then you start adding services. And start doing things a little bit better or different than your competitor. The product doesn't really change, and the attributes of the product don't really change, but how you deliver them might. And that's how you gain that differentiation, that perception of difference through augmentations, so modifications of the actual product or value-added services that help the customer use the product. So again, kind of thinking about, we're going to move forward, we're going to think a little later on product development and some of the steps and stages. How can I create a new product? How could I do something that is different? Well, I could add products and services. I could make product augmentations that way. I could change physical elements of the product, which is certainly doable. Now, when you change physical elements of the product, you have to adapt your process of production. You have to change probably your supply, some of your supply stuff, the raw materials, some of that. So it's a little bit more, right? These augmentations are easy to implement, to take away and put together and bring out there. Physically changing your product tends to be a little bit harder. But again, we can do it, right? Or you can come up with a brand new way to deliver the value at its core, which is super hard to do. It's kind of rare to do that. Okay, so just kind of, think about these are different things that we can do, different ways that we can conceptualize this idea of products. Okay, so getting back though to this idea, we talked about discontinuity once, and I mentioned that there are some other things associated with characteristics of innovation, and I want to stick on this innovation thing. I may slip into products, but innovation is really the key, creating something new. And where we focus a lot of energy in marketing is if we create something new, we want to understand how it's going to be adopted in the marketplace. So we spend a lot of energy producing forecasts and just trying to get some understanding of how rapidly this product will approach the product life cycle. Will it get adopted quickly? Will it go take off quickly? Will it be real slow? And are there elements that can modify that product life cycle? So remember that product life cycle kind of goes up, goes to maturity, and comes down, right? Well, we also mentioned that it can do that at different rates. It can go up very quickly, a very steep curve through the introduction stage and through growth, or it could go very, very slow. And there are certain elements that help speed it up and slow it down. Discontinuity, as I mentioned, is kind of one of those things, right? It impacts the rate of adoption. If you have to change your behavior a lot in order to adopt the product, then chances are that product's going to take a long time to diffuse or to spread through the marketplace, right? There are some others here as well, though, and there are literally lots and lots and lots and lots. This is a pretty extensive, there can be an extensive list out there of influences like these that affect the rate of adoption. These here, though, these 7 or 8 are the bigger ones, the ones that get all the attention and the ones that can give you an idea that when we're creating innovation, one of our key features will be the effect of rate of adoption that's built into it. Okay, so what are some of these things? Discontinuity. Talked about that already. Relative advantage. Okay, so this is a concept where it's relative. So it's like you look at the way I'm solving a problem today, the products I'm using, the services I'm using, how I'm going about fulfilling a need or want, and then I look at this new product and I make a comparative kind of analysis, or I kind of think about how much better is this new product at solving my problem than the old product. I mean, I'm brushing my teeth with Colgate toothbrush. I look on the ad and there's this new toothpaste that's out there. And, I want my breath to smell good and my teeth to look good, I guess. How much better does this new toothpaste do at completing those functions than what I'm currently using today? So from a relative perspective, what is the difference here? Okay, if you can demonstrate to the consumer that your product performs significantly better, okay, that was a tricky chair. You got the tricky one. If you can prove that your product performs better, right? Then you can convince people that it's a better functioning product, then you'll gain some sense of relative advantage.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My parents, growing up, we used Colgate toothpaste when you talked about Colgate. And when I went out on my own, I bought Crest because I wanted to differentiate myself as an adult.
Sound like you were a rebel.
No. And then when I went to my son's first apartment, he used Colgate. Like, I wonder how many young people can identify with wanting to use a different product than what their parents always used.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. Yeah. Something to look into. That'd be cool. All right. So relative advantage can happen in a couple different dimensions. Attributes and features are one that kind of mentioned. We also have relative advantages from an economic perspective. Is the product less expensive relative to others, but perform the same benefits? Does it perform as well? Is it more efficient? Will I save money in the end? Will it last longer? Its durability. So there are economic advantages, there are the actual feature and performance advantages, but then there are also social advantages as well. So you can think of relative advantage as being multidimensional. There are lots of ways that the product can improve your life. So in what ways does it improve your life? So again, if I'm marketing this, if I'm bringing this message to a market, I want to distinguish my product as superior, but I can use a couple different directions or angles to do that in. Okay, so relative advantage. discontinuity. The more discontinuous the product is, then the slower the rate of adoption. The more relative advantage it possesses, the faster the rate of adoption. So this speeds up adoption rates, right, the more you have of it. Okay, any questions so far? We're good? Okay.
Bless you.
Bless you, yeah. Compatibility. Compatibility is the next one. A little bit similar in some ways to discontinuity, but also different. Compatibility tends to be this idea that the product it fits into your life. It's compatible with your habits and your kind of what you do. It has synergy with other aspects of your kind of what you do, your patterns or your habits. Okay, so it's a lifestyle thing. If you feel like this product fits into you as a person, your personality, there's a gel that's going on, right, between the new product and what's there. There's certainly a compatibility dimension when it comes to social aspects, like adopting this new product would fit into my life with my friends. My friends would expect me to use this new product, or they wouldn't be surprised if I use this new product. There's a good fit there, I guess is the best way to think about it. And also there's another dimension, one of technology. So again, adopting a new product, like a new, I don't know, it's one of these things Apple has done so well, right? Apple has done a lock-in strategy where, if you had the iPod or if you have an iPad or if you had another device of Apple, then within their universe, within their ecosystem, you can use the phone and everything syncs up. Everything goes well. Well, what if I had an Android phone but an Apple Watch? Those technologies might not work well together. Might not make sense for that. They're not compatible, right? They don't really work or sync with each other particularly well. So that would be an incompatible relationship that's there. So people can, again, be convinced that this product's going to socially and from a lifestyle perspective, from a current habit with technology perspective fit in their life, that will have a sense that it's more compatible with what they are accustomed to and used to. So certainly that would speed up the rate of adoption. Okay, cool. Observability. All right, how visible is the product? And this is particularly helpful if it's in use. So when you see other people using a product, that demonstration of the product helps reinforce its usefulness. And it's like, yeah, I see people using that product. I see people wearing that outfit. I see people, eating at that restaurant. It becomes a visibility type of a thing. And it builds social confidence, it reduces risk. There's a whole bunch of things like that are positive, right? So can potential adopters then see the product as it's in use by others? Okay, it's also another term that sometimes falls into this space is called communicability. Can its usefulness or application be not communicated, but can it be described to others? Is really kind of where that falls in place. Okay, so observability, and it makes sense. Yeah, just if you're using it. I mean, the one example I have, I don't always talk about electric vehicles. I don't always talk about bars and going and drinking beer. Trust me, I don't. Okay, but this one example I have. So you go to a bar. 3 people walk in a bar. And this is what I you go to a bar, right? And depending on the type of bar you go to, and I know this is not really the custom in the US. It depends on where you go, but if you go to a bar and you order a beer, if you were inclined to do that, I'm not saying you would be, ordered a beer and you ask for a specific brand, then what the bar should do is pour the beer in a glass, and the glass should have the brand's name on it. Guys ever go to a bar that does that? Or if you order a Guinness, it's going to be in a Guinness.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be in a glass that's a Guinness glass, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so here's the deal. If you're all hanging out at the bar, right? If you're all hanging out at the bar and you see people walking around and they're holding a beer, if they don't have a distinctive glass, then you would never know what beer they're drinking, right? Now, that doesn't matter to most people. But if you're selling beer, and if you want to build observability, you have zero observability if you're in a scenario where all the glasses are the same. Does that make sense? But once you have your product being poured in a glass that has your name on it, then all of a sudden people see the product in use, and it pushes this observability thing. Does that make sense? I mean, like, toothpaste example, how observable is toothpaste? I mean, I don't see any of you all, I just, I see you right now, but I don't know when and how and what brands you use. You don't know, right? That's just not an observable product, right? I mean, that'd just be weird if it was, probably. So observability for that particular product is super low, and we have to create ways, though, to enhance observability.
But if you go to a bar and you order a Guinness or you order a Miller Lite, you're getting the bottle or the can and you're walking around with that. The only time you're getting a glass is if you order a draft beer.
Yeah, well, it depends on what
Right?
bars you go to.
Well, I quit drinking a long time ago, but when I went to the bar every night, you got a draft beer and a glass, but all the other times you got a bottle or a can. So everybody could see what you were drinking.
That's another form of observability, though. That is. That it absolutely is, for sure. Yep. That enhances that. So seeing the product in use helps adoption, rate adoption. Okay, complexity. Now, certainly complexity slows down the rate of adoption, right? How much technical depth does the product have? And it decreases the rate of production, or adoption, sorry. In use and in design, okay? This is kind of an interesting one that you can make arguments that this doesn't always hold. Just because something's complicated doesn't necessarily mean it's harder to use. One of the criteria years and years and years ago on how we might measure complexity is the size and the density of the owner's manual. You buy a product, and if the owner's manual is super thick, then it's probably a pretty complex product, right? Something along those lines. Counter arguments, though. Some people find that driving an automatic transmission vehicle is easier than driving a manual transmission vehicle. But automatics are far more complicated internally, at least, right? Are they more complicated in use? No, not at all. So easier in use, but more complicated in the technology behind them. So it's kind of a weird, interesting one there. Thankfully, I don't need to know how it works. I just need to know D means go, drive, right? And R means reverse, typically. And that's pretty easy to do, right, as far as that goes. So complexity. Okay, another one still on this page, trialability. Trialability is kind of, the way we actually kind of technically define trialability, it's a product that can be divided into pieces and used in part. I know that's kind of technical, but can you offer samples? Can you offer portions of your product without it being fully consumed or used? And a lot of times, right, trial bases, if it's a service, You know, we can offer those. We can do a mini project for a client, and if they're satisfied, they can order the full project. We can get a tasting, a sampling. If it's a consumer packaged good type of a thing, we can almost always do some type of trial. It's the go take this home, try it out, and if you don't like it, bring it back next week, and most people like whatever the product is. Okay, so trialability. Again, these are all things we can think about from a innovation production standpoint to try to either ultimately improve the rate of adoption and how things get spread through the marketplace. Okay, finally, perceived risk, right? So before we buy a product, we have to have a little faith that the product is going to do what it's supposed to do, and it's going to perform as it is told to us it will perform. But we don't always fully know whether it will or not. So now, if we make repeat purchases, we do. But if you're buying a product for the first time, we may not know whether it's going to do everything that it's supposed to do. This may be a function of the risk of the product category. Like the product category may have inherent risk associated with it. Or it may be some form of other risk. Performance risk is just one of the other perceived risks that we could have. Like that it claims it will do this, but I won't know if it'll do that until I buy it and use it. And then it might be too late. So like if the product fails, and this is a really important thing, then there might be a lot of damage associated with this uncertainty, I guess, right? And if it's an important decision, important purchase that you're making, if there's a high degree of uncertainty, then this makes this a very risky purchase. So if there's a lot of perceived risk associated with that. There's also social risk. You know, like there's a risk, kind of like the compatibility deal, there's a risk I'm going to buy this outfit and I won't be in style and I'll be, I'll be the outcast or whatnot. So there's a social risk associated there as well, performance risk, economic risk. There are a number of different risks that you could expose yourself to that we don't quite know how things are going to go. Okay, so this is a good list, right? Like I said, there's well over 30 different types of characteristics like this. All of which, though, have an influence on making a product spread throughout the market. Are we good so far? You guys doing all right? Okay. This leads us up to an idea called diffusion. Right. So diffusion of an innovation. And again, this is really spend a lot of effort and time thinking about how markets accept products and how they spread and how news and information spread about a product. Because if news and information spread, then ultimately buying habits change and people buy products kind of like that. So when we talk about innovation diffusion, we're talking about how products typically are communicated, what channels that are communicated through, how people hear about products through a social system, and subsequently will buy the product. Again, we do spend a lot of time and effort thinking about communication as a basis of theory for thinking about how products spread. And I guess the idea is, if you are going to buy a product, you first have to learn about the product. We learn about products through communication. We hear about a product from our friends. We see an advertisement. We walk around the store and we see it for the first time. So this is like an information transfer thing that's going on. So if we can really understand how people are going to become aware of the product and how we can influence that process, then we can subsequently and hopefully influence the notion of who will buy. So diffusion, though, is a term that's used in lots and lots of fields. It's not just a business thing or a marketing thing or whatever. When we think about diffusing energy, spreading it out, just dissipating it. If we're thinking about a petri dish and we drop a germ or something in it, it spreads, so it diffuses. So lots of different fields use this concept of spreading or of exchanging, in this case, information. In marketing in particular, we apply the idea of diffusion to this notion of adoption, and we've come up with a series of guides or kind of categories, if you will, of different types of people who buy at different times in a product's life cycle or over a period of time as they learn about the products. We know some people buy the products right away. Some people are like super fans. They're like super into the product. And so before the product is even out, they'll be pre-ordering it. They don't need to see anybody else using it. It's not a visibility thing. It's not an observability thing. It's not a perceived risk thing. They just love the product concept. You know, when I think are they up to Apple's 17s now? 17's out? Yeah. Before 17s came out, there were people ready to buy them, right? And as soon as they hit the market, there were the innovators who were wanting to get that product, whatever that new product is. Innovators are super cool in the sense that they, we'll kind of keep on going here. They make up a pretty small percentage of the market, but they often are bellwethers. Bellwether is something that will foreshadow or help us better understand the rest of the market. So if the innovators buy the product and they like it, they're going to pass it on, and the early adopters will start adopting next. And these two groups together make up 18%, 17 to 18% of the market, typically. They're going to buy the product when it's first out. They're going to send lots and lots and lots and lots of messages to everybody else in the marketplace, right? So if you are able to identify innovators and early adopters, even if you're like with your innovators, even if you're able to push the product out to them and just get them using it, give some product away, get the innovators to use your product, then you're going to send messages to the rest of the market, which will kind of push your product adoption rate. That's a good thing, right? So the early adopters aren't considered the crazy innovators, but they're definitely influential in the rest of the market, and they're eager to buy in your product. Okay, the two middle categories, the early majority and then the late majority, make up 60 to 70% of the total market who are going to buy your product. They're a lot more patient, I guess. They want to typically make sure that the product works. They want to see the product in use. They want to make sure it's the technology that's going to be adopted by everyone. They want to see that this is not just a short-term fad. A little bit more risk-averse. They're waiting to hear about favorable experiences. So it's not like they're late by any means, but they're just a little bit more hesitant than the early adopters. Okay, the late majority, so we got the late majority folks, even more cautious, sometimes a little bit older, sometimes a little bit more conservative financially, right? Conservative, not socially, conservative financially, a little more pensive. They want to make sure that whatever they're buying soon. So electric cars are probably still in the early majority, I'm guessing. I think it's past the early adopter stage, but probably in the early majority. I'm guessing, somewhere around there, maybe just barely. I would guess that the late majority still haven't taken electric vehicles seriously yet, be my guess. If I were to guess kind of where that product was in the spectrum of consumers, right? That's probably where they are. The laggards are our last group. Laggards are folks who, boy, they sure do love their old technology, and they really like the idea of something that's true and tested, and now they have to adopt something new because their old technology either doesn't exist anymore or it really underperforms. And they have tons of confidence now that this new product is going to perform correctly, right? So that's, that's a big deal, right? They're super risk averse in that sense, skeptical of new products, but cautious, right? And they go kicking and screaming sometimes into this new thing. Okay, which brings us up to how do we kind of conceptualize this with diffusion? Like, how can we control this, or how can we think of communication as a process to spread information about our product so that it goes through this cycle and these consumers all eventually buy the product? A lot of times we want this to go quickly, but we do recognize that at various points along this timeline, different consumers have different needs and different interests and different sort of motivations as they're buying the product. But anyways, it brings us up to this notion of kind of diffusion, kind of what this looks like from a communication standpoint. And we have this kind of idea, it's like how do people hear about a product? When you learn about a product, how do you learn about it? How do you typically learn about it?
Social media.
What's that?
Social media.
Social media, yeah. Who puts together social media posts? Where does the message come from?
Marketers.
There you go. Does it?
I think so.
Does it? Yeah. Influencers, marketers, content that companies put out?
Yeah.
It's a safe answer.
I thought it was supposed to be social. If it's like social implies between people, P2P. Yeah. If it's business to person, is it really social?
Oh, no.
That's a good question, isn't it? I've never thought about this. We call it social media. Well, what percentage of what you're looking at was produced by a company, and what percentage was produced by a peer?
Good point. Well, technically, you're the person working for the company.
Okay.
So it is a person, like, hitting upload.
Well, what about like third-party independent contractors who are like marketers? So they're not necessarily working for a company, but they're vouching for a company and connecting it to you.
It's like the message is supposed to be organic, like it's you saying something.
Yeah.
But like, how much of it is actually you saying something that I'm seeing, and it's like some company, or a third party, or an influencer's being paid, or AI.
Oh, no.
Isn't that nuts? Yeah, like huge volumes is AI content, right?
And for as much as we talked about toothpaste tonight, I bet everybody's phone tomorrow will have ads for toothpaste.
It's listening.
All the time.
Somebody's always listening to you. Fantastic. All right, so there's a model out here that looks like this, and we're going to spend a little bit of time looking at this in a little bit of depth. This is something I think that's interesting. So represented here, this is actually number of adopters, and this is actually in discrete time periods, okay? So imagine this is just like weeks or months or years in time. And over a period of time, at the beginning, we have a certain number of people who adopt the product. Now remember, they adopt the product because they have heard about it, and they've been convinced to buy it or whatnot, somehow. Okay, and so the theory goes, and this is actually, we'll talk about this a little bit more because this is rooted in a lot of different areas. The idea is that when you first introduce a product, nobody knows about it. So the way information is conveyed is from the company to the market, because nobody knows about it in the market yet. So how would they know about it, right? Other than what the company puts out there. So the company produces some messaging one way or another, and they send messages out. So in the first period, in the very beginning here, everybody who buys is being messaged by the firm, or we'll call them the innovator. Does that make sense? Take the next period though, and you look here, it goes up to like there. So more people adopt the product in the next period, but they don't just hear information from the innovator, they also hear information from people or sources we're going to call imitators. So in other words, that first period, you remember that 2 to 3% of the population, we call them the innovators, those types of consumers. They buy the product because they heard about it from the company. And then the next period, they talk about the product and they spread word about the product. So the next period's purchasers, a percentage of them buy because of information from the innovator, but also a few of them buy because of information from people who bought before, who are spreading information, and we call them imitators. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So in period 2, a percentage of the buyers buy the product because they hear about it from their friends. But also a lot of the buyers buy it because they still hear information from the firm. So what's kind of interesting about this, what you're going to notice is the percentage of buyers who buy from based on information from the firm declines every period. It steadily goes down, right? So the market is developing, the market is growing, more people are buying each term, each time period, but it's not because the firm is advertising, and it's not because they're advertising more. More people are buying each subsequent period because there's word of mouth. There's peer-to-peer communication that's happening. Information is spreading like wildfire about this new product, right? I heard about it from them, I've talked about it, right? So eventually, the firm doesn't really have to do a lot of messaging, right? The story takes off on its own. I don't have to continue to perpetuate the story. Does that make sense? Does that kind of, all right, well, so this is all part of, this is an extension of a theory. There we go. Let's see if we can draw some pictures. Contagion theory. All right, and this is used again in a lot of different fields, but this is an adaptation of this theory. All right, so I'm going to do some my 3rd grade art skills. Sorry. Okay, we have an island. Y'all want to go to a beautiful island or the winter break, spring break, just enjoy the sun. How about it, right? All right, that's what we're all doing. Transport yourself to an island and just relax, okay? And maybe we can draw some nice trees. I don't know. We'll make it nice, all right? Over here, there's a mountain on the island, though. All right, we got a mountain. We got some beaches. You can tell my 3rd grade art didn't pay off. Okay, but we're not the only people on the island. There are people on the island, right? right? I'm just gonna draw little circles for people. You got people on the island, they're kind of hanging out. All right, but something happens. This is like in a TV show like Lost, or is Lost the one where they were on an island? On an island, nobody can reach them anymore. Like a big typhoon came by. So we're stranded on the island. All right, so the vacation went from awesome to now I'm stuck with you, right? Which is fine. We're gonna make it. We're gonna survive this, right? There's somebody over here kind of hanging out. All right, so we're cruising along. We're in month 2 or 3 on this stranded island. Nobody knows we're there. And we think everything is going fine. And a big old flock of birds come by one day. And we think they're harmless, right? Because they're just birds. And we're hungry. So we're sick of fish. So we're like, hey, let's get one of these birds, right? Unfortunately, the bird has a disease. And we decided, we didn't know, right? But it was a big bird, so we're like chomping down because we're sick of fish. So we eat this bird, and it makes us sick. So what happens is somebody eats the bird, and they get infected with some type of a disease. And this is time 1. Maybe they shared it with a friend. Maybe this friend over here in time 1, maybe they had a meal together. All right, so the next day they wake up and they're like feeling a little under the weather, like no big deal, it's probably heat stroke, all right? They hang out with some friends, right? Because they're neighbors. And so on day 2, these folks here get sick, all right? And they're like, again, there's like a set-on period. It's like they don't know they have it, but they don't know about quarantining. They're not as sophisticated as we are when a pandemic comes around, right? So day 3, like we've got all these people hanging out with each other. They're having a luau, right? So day 3, we've got this multiplier effect where all these people are starting to get sick. So in day 1, you had 2. In day 2, in terms of people that get sick, you maybe have 4. Day 3, you have like 8, and it kind of goes like that progressively. Does that make sense? This is contagion theory. This is the idea of contagion theory. Now, we do have this dude over here, or dudette, I don't know, this person, right? And like, they don't know what's going on. They don't get sick because they never get any messaging. They never get any communication. They never get in contact with the contagion that's going on. All right, so I know this is silly, but we have this one influence, this bird that came down, and this is our innovator. This is the firm who introduces some information or introduces something into the social system, into the market. And then as people communicate with each other, each subsequent time period, this is that rate of imitation. Right? So we have a rate of innovation and a rate of imitation. The rate in which people get infected from the bird or the firm is that innovator concept. And the rate in which people get infected by other people is the social peer-to-peer imitator effect. So it only takes one bird to affect the entire market. And time. You have to have time, right? It can't happen right away. But just now picture like you got this really great product idea and you push it out to the right people. Now, if the bird came over here, right? What if the bird came over here and infected this person? How effective would that a bird have been? I mean, or how lucky are the others that this person is kind of a hermit, right? Absolutely. So it can't be that the bird just randomly gets somebody infected. They happen to get people who are really socially infected, and it's really social infected. And those socialites, those mavens, those influencers who we watch on TikTok spread that disease to everybody else who's out there. How about that? That's kind of morbid, right? But that's the theory. This is the way this works. This is the way this concept goes. It's kind of interesting, kind of fun to tell a story sometimes, and it's this representation on the chart where initially we get information from the firm, but then once things take off, they take off pretty quickly. Okay, so this is kind of, all right, so this is not, this was, oh my goodness, what year was it that this model was put together? I can't remember. This is called the BAS model. It actually combines two different models together, and it looks really ugly up there, and I know it does. This model has 3 different pieces to it, 3 different parameters. This is a base model. It can be expanded quite a bit to adapt to things. So this is a base model. It's called the BAS model. We'll look at it a little bit more in some detail. And we'll kind of look at some pieces to it. But just, don't worry about this too much, except that we know we have an adoption rate or a number of adopters in a discrete time period. We have a parameter called the coefficient of innovation. This little number here, and it usually is a little number like that, and this is just, it can be different, doesn't have to be that. But this P, this little number here, is a rate of innovation. It's a parameter. It's a number that's used to represent the impact of the firm's communication. Okay? The Q, which is the second piece here that we need to have, is it's a rate. It's usually bigger like this, 0.3 or something like that. It could be, but it's significantly bigger in size. There's not a relationship between them, but it just is. But it is the influence of basically word of mouth, of social contagion, of people talking to each other about the product. Okay. Then the last thing that we really need, this is calculated each time we run it, but the last thing that's not calculated in there that would be a parameter type of a thing is the market size. The size of the market, which is represented here by M, large, big M there. Okay, so we'll come back to this. So, I don't want you to worry about this. We're going to look at this in a little bit more detail. We're going to look at an example of this in action as well. Okay, but this is what we can use to help predict diffusion. Okay, future sales. All right, so it's gonna. I didn't know that. I'm sorry, I didn't know that was there, or I forgot. All right. Okay, so let's say we have a spreadsheet, and we take that formula we just looked at, and we put it into a spreadsheet, and we have a P. In this case, it's 0.009. That's going to be the rate of innovation. The rate, it'll be just a number. It's hard to really understand what 0.009 means. That's pretty low, just in general for a P. But it is a number that will associate with the effect the firm has in influencing the market or advertising or whatever they do. The 0.173, also that's pretty low for a Q. Again, that's that rate of imitation. And the M is market size. All right, so this is old data, obviously. There have been lots and lots and lots of studies used with lots and lots and lots of old data. Okay? If you take that formula you just saw, and we plug in M, and we plug in P, and we plug in Q, and we run it for a series of time periods, you'll get this pink line. And what we like to do is compare it to what actual sales were for the product, which is the blue line. And you'll see right away that it's pretty close match. So imagine today you're thinking about launching a product, and you're like, I don't know what the sales are gonna look like over a period of time. Say you're in 1965 and 1964, and you're like, what will sales for this product be like? If I could come up with P, and if I could come up with Q, I can do some market research, and I can come up with an M. That's not hard. But if I can come up with P and I can come up with Q, I could forecast. Right there, look at the pink line. Look at how accurate that line is. I could come pretty close to predicting what sales will be for the next 20 years, this product. That kind of crazy? That kind of crazy that you can do that? And again, it's this like combination of information. Now, how could this get changed? If we have new competitors, if something happens like we experienced with the internet in the 2000s and social media, like the power of Q is so much stronger today than it was 20 years ago. That would be something we didn't forecast for. So there are things that can change, right, over the period of time, but by and large, it does a pretty good job of doing model predictions, of being able to predict sales, as far as things like that go. Okay, so let's look at an example. This is projectors using the BAS model. Yeah. All right. Let's look at a little example here, how we might do this in real life. Okay, so I'm going to take you back in time a little bit to the mid-1980s, early 1980s up to the mid-1980s. There was a war going on between Betamax, Sony, and VCR. I can't remember the companies. VCR and Betamax. Anyways, VCR won. VCR was a technology used to watch videos, VCR tapes. Used to come with plastic tape, like an analog. It was an analog tape. Put it in the machine, and it ran.
We could come to my house for a field trip and watch all of my VCR tapes.
Oh my goodness. There's the time capsule right there. So fast forward a little bit to the late 80s, and digital technologies obviously advanced to the point where the compact disc presented a viable option to replace the VCR, right? Okay, so let's pretend we're in the late 80s, and we've got this compact, the DVD concept that we could launch. Problem is, we don't know what sales are going to be like. We can't really predict particularly well. We don't know how to predict, right? We're not sure how sales will do and what that curve will look like. So in practice, what I would do if I was going to launch a DVD player is I would look for a product that was similar, that had been launched previously, and I would look at those historical sales numbers. Using those historical sales numbers, we can estimate the P and the Q. Okay, so using historical sales numbers for a VCR, I can do maximum, it's a process, one process is called maximum likelihood estimation, where we can estimate what the P and the Q is for an analogous product, the VCR, right? So, because I don't know, the DVD's new to the world. There are no other DVDs out. That product's a new product. But a product that's awfully close is the VCR that was launched 10 years earlier. So I'm going to say, well, look, sales for the VCR are like this, I can estimate what the P and the Q are for the, for that. So in this spreadsheet, I've got my P for VCR, I've got my Q, and I just kind of put in a number for M. Now M is what? It's market size. So market size, it's like it pushes the data up or down. It just the magnitude changes. That's all, not the shape of the curve. Like I could change this M and we'll basically see the scale shift up and down. Okay, but if I did this, I'm gonna, I don't know if you can see the code up here at the very top, but we've got in here, this is the BAS model in action. So that formula we looked at on PowerPoint just a little bit ago, this is it in here. And like I said, we have to repeat the formula for every time period, but if we do, we can chart those numbers and we can take a look at what the sales for VCRs would look like using the BAS model. Okay, but this is for VCRs. This doesn't necessarily help us yet, does it? I mean, we're not quite sure how this is going to do because I'm trying to develop a new product. I'm trying to launch a new product called DVD. I'm using VCR sales numbers as an analogy in order to sort of go from here. Could I change this? Could I tweak this a little bit? Yeah, absolutely I could. But if I'm starting off, I'm going to say, okay, in this time period, what is that, about 9 or 10? Right here, period 10, that'll be sort of our peak sales. That's when our sales are going to peak, right? Whenever that is. So we're 1986, so 1996 or so, I'm going to say my sales are going to peak. And they're going to peak at this level. Whatever this level is, this is probably in thousands of units or something like that. Again, we could change this. So it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be there. We could double it. We could move it up. Did that change at all? Should have changed. What happened? Oh, this is weird. Oh my goodness, something's wrong. My chart should be changing. Okay, well, I'm not going to worry about this right now. I'll make sure this works for you so you can download it and it'll be okay. As you change these, the shape of the thing should change. So, anyways, maybe we'll look at this page here. This is what yeah. All right, so there we go. That changes. All right, cool. So look. The base model, again, same, just a different page on here. If I were to do a better job or be more effective in my firm's communication, and it wasn't 0.025, that p-value, let's say it was 0.035, then it shifts the curve. It accelerates the curve, right? If we did even a better job, this would be crazy, this would be way too high. But like maybe a product that gets diffused extremely quickly would have something like the fad item, something that people have a lot of buildup for. Might be something like that. What if it's something that people are not talking about very much out in the marketplace, and our Q is a lot lower? Changes the shape of the curve, it pushes it out and lowers it quite a bit. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, if this is a modeling, or if you guys do any modeling or forecasting, this is a pretty cool model to be able to use. Like I said, Frank Bass created this at UT Arlington. I want to say in the late 70s, 76 I think is when this was done. And so you can, kind of use this. All right, so VCR, anyways, .025 is what it was. I don't know why my chart's not changing. It should. I apologize. I don't know what's happening with that. Let's take actual DVD sales. So remember when we were trying to project DVD sales? So here are some numbers up through 2005. From 97 to 2005, I don't have the complete data for DVD sales. But again, using a little bit of data, we can estimate what P, Q, and we would know what M was. And so if we were to do that, we would find that the actual P for DVDs was .0206. Remember, we initially estimated it would be .025, so those aren't that far off. So in other words, the analogous product of VCRs was not a bad choice in terms of being pretty close. Q is a little higher, 0.77 as opposed to 0.603. Okay, so this is kind of cool forecasting stuff. If I took my forecast, and I took the actual DVD sales, so VCR sales over time are the blue line, DVD sales over time are the yellow line. And, you know, while they're not a perfect match, they're not that bad. They're pretty close. Okay, so this is the Bass model, and it is predicated on contagion theory. This idea that there's a relationship of information, how information is communicated and flows between the firm and the market and among market members. Do you guys have any questions? Yeah.
So with the Q and the P,
Yep.
what are those numbers actually like when you say it's like, what do they actually like mean?
So that is the thing. These are parameters that don't have a lot of meaning in and of themselves. However, one thing people might do is this P. Sometimes people will they'll go out and do some market research and they'll find out specifically what percentage of the market are innovators. Remember I said there's about 2 to 3%, something like that, make up innovators. That's pretty close to what that number is there. So it's like the initial buyers, like people who are initially sold as a result of exclusively information from the firm. That percentage of the market is oftentimes what that P is. Q is almost always a guess based on, I hate to say that, a guess based on other products that are similar.
Okay.
No, it truly is. Now, one of the benefits here, or one of the good things about this model is it tends to be fairly robust. Like, you don't need very much data to estimate P and Q on your own. So in other words, if that product's been out for 2 or 3 years, you'll probably have enough data to be able to forecast for a very long time. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
So once the product's launched, you can use this and estimate P pretty well after a handful of periods. But yeah.
So the P for the 5% for P, is that saying like 5% the total addressable market, or is that
that might suggest that 5% of the market will buy in the first period. In the first period, like as a result of only information the firm is producing. Yeah, and that's high. That's high. That would be a high number. 0.03 would be much more reasonable. We noticed that with the DVD and the other the VCR sales, that was way up there at 0.6. And then if we change our market size, if we did something crazy and we added a 0, then it's gonna just take the same curve. It'll just boost it up. The scale will shift with market size changes. Yeah. Now, this is true with anything when you want to like this doesn't have to be buying a new product. This could be people adopting a new political campaign. This could be people doing a new social habit. This could be anything, any behavioral pattern that people have that spread through other people and started by somebody, if that makes sense. I mean, this is called contagion theory, and it comes out of communication and epidemiology, and I mean, you want to spread a disease, you can use the same model. If you want to model the spread of a disease, you can use the same model, right? So during COVID, you could put the rate of infections in here. We could estimate what that was. We could get the P is kind of a starting point. I mean, the Q is kind of a starting point. The P is, I'm sorry, but the P is that rate of contagion that takes effect and really pushes the model forward. So it's very kind of cool, kind of a cool model. And like I said, this is available in Moodle if you want to jump in there. The BAS model formulas part of it is, I just put that all in there, so it's all ready for your consumption and however you're doing that. Okay, so just a couple notes as we kind of walk through a little bit of this. The BAS model itself, these parameters are static in this particular model. It doesn't represent reality super well because they very most likely change. Again, that P could be from an intention to buy survey or that percentage of initial innovators. It's a good way to think about where that P would come from. It's going to be a pretty small number, probably from 0.02 to 0.05, something like that. As the way the model functions is that this is a percentage of the population that is ultimately captured. So as more people adopt, the rate of social interaction has more and more influence on whether people buy or not. And the effect that the firm has in convincing people to buy is less and less every subsequent period. This is really good news for marketers, for business folks, because what it means is once you kickstart the process, as long as people are talking about your product, you can spend less and less money in advertising each subsequent period. And this is one of the reasons why when the product goes through product life cycle, you make the most money kind of at the end of the growth stage, because that's when that influence, that P influence is, or the influence of the innovator is ebbing, is descending quickly. And that's, I don't know, that's kind of a good thing, right? All right, other key things or other things that you can do with this exact same model. You can look at the graph, but you can also calculate exactly when time of peak sales will be and what that magnitude will be. So in other words, I'm producing a product. I want to know when the most number of consumers are going to buy the product. When will it be and how much will it be? And so we can take a look at what that inflection point is. We can know exactly how many units we have to produce at that period. We know how big the factory needs to be, those types of things. Those are all helpful things to know. Okay, so do y'all have any questions of this, like, example? You're excited to use it yourselves, I can tell. Ready to get going, right? Right? Who wants to launch a new product? Who wants to, that'd be fun to be able to do.
So I have a question about, going back to talking about Betamax and VHS, because I was there, when it was going on. So Betamax, the quality in Betamax was far superior to VHS. But VHS went out, and because their tapes were longer, you could get a 6-hour VHS tape. Yeah, because my son was 3, and he was a TV fiend. So I could make a 6-hour tape of VHS, Chip and Dale and Popeye and all that, and he would lay on the couch for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And I could take a nap, and I could take a bath, and I could take a shower, whatever. But how did they not know that with all this stuff going on? Like if you have that VAS model and you have this, how did they not know that Betamax was gonna tank? That's what
You know, it's interesting, and sometimes this happens when you have a new innovation and you have two competing technologies. The problem is only one of them could succeed. And it might have been a pricing thing, it might have been an availability thing, it might have been a production thing. I don't know the story as to why one overcame the other and one became, so one was, the technology was adopted, right? Like this Apple and Android is kind of a rare thing where you have two competing technologies and two different platforms that coexist. Seemingly well. Now, Android and MS-DOS is enormously larger in volume by far. Like, it dwarfs Apple in terms of numbers of users. Look, it's not even close. I mean, Apple's computer market's like maybe 10%, 5%, I don't know. Super small. So it's a rare occasion that two technology platforms function together in the same space. It wasn't going to happen between Beta and VHS. You could only have one technology. Because the thing is, if you buy a Beta, you can only use Beta tapes. And if you go to the rental store, or if you buy movies, they're not going to support both platforms. They're not going to have Betas and VHSs at the same time. That doubles their inventory and their costs. So they're going to choose one or the other. So there could only be one technology platform in that product category. Why it was VHS and not Beta, I can't remember. I used to know. And you're right, the Beta quality was a lot better.
Far superior.
Far superior, far better. And I don't know if it was a distribution thing or really what it was. Yeah, I can't remember. But talking about quality, let's talk a little bit about quality, right? We'll have some fun. We'll learn a little bit. See what we can tease out. You're welcome. Of a story today. All right. Hey. It's your event. All right. Not field. Not field. What distances? I mean, all 3,200s. Wait, that's a sprint. Come on. I pass out at 50. Okay, all right. I'm learning. Getting this down.
We got an extra.
Perfect. Were you out there running?
Sadly.
There were at least 50. I don't know how many numbers there were out there.
What time do you drive in the morning usually?
Today it was too early. It was like 7. Yeah. But there was groups everywhere. Impressive. Dedication. There's something.
It's starting to get cold.
Huh?
It's starting to get a little chilly.
Yeah, but maybe it's a little less humid.
Like t-shirts or leather.
Okay, all right. Innovation. All right, so I had this article came up the other day. And so there are other articles, though. There's an article in Moodle on the 1,000 different flavors of banana and how banana flavors are synthetically produced by chemicals, which, like, a lot of people don't want that necessarily, but they like the flavor. And firms like to use them because they're cheap. They're inexpensive ways to create flavor. So flavor houses exist, and they produce flavors and fragrances and all kinds of fun things like that. So that's an interesting article about innovation, because it really shows how you've got a company that's creating a method or a technology that can then be used by manufacturers who then create thousands and thousands of products based on that technology. So it's really an interesting innovation piece that's there. Seems like there are some others there as well. There's an article that is there on a human they call it a human washing machine, where it's this body pod you get into, and it's like a shower. It like automatically washes the person. It's like self-sufficient. Like you don't do anything, you just go in it washes you, and you leave. And it's a new technology that this product's going to be launched in full production next year. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't have the article with me, but it's on Moodle. The human washing machine. That's one that's going to create a lot of discontinuity. Like for people to use it, they'd have to have it installed. You have to have space for it. You have to have the plumbing for it. You have to not only do all of that, but you also have to like get in it. It changes your whole pattern of bathing, right? So the takeoff on that is probably going to be really, really, really long. It's going to be an expensive product, and it's one that would be amazingly shocking if it ever took off, right? I mean, it's kind of hard to imagine. Because of the characteristics the products have, people don't see, it's not an observability thing, people won't see it in use. Right? Again, there's a ton of perceived risk. Will it work? Will it function? Will it do what it's supposed to do? The cost is incredible. There's almost no compatibility with technology that we already have for it. You know, if you look at the things that would slow down the rate of adoption based on the characteristics we looked at earlier, a human washing machine is bad on all of them. Just about, right?
But it says under AI that it's going to mostly be used right now when it first comes out in nursing homes and hotels.
Okay.
Because it cleans and dries you in 15 minutes, and it uses sensors to monitor your vitals, adjust water temperature. So it's more, at this point, like a healthcare thing.
So they've got a specific target market, a group of consumers that have a specific need, like healthcare facilities, right?
And they're talking about how it may be adapted for home use.
Got it.
Down the road.
I love that. Yeah, that's perfect. I hadn't thought about that, but they have. That's good. That's good. Cool. All right, so that's an interesting one. But here's another one just to take a gander at. Can Ferrari persuade the super rich to buy an EV sports car that won't rev? That's it, right? We are all familiar probably with the branding elements of Ferrari. Ferrari is a super valuable brand. It has a lot of brand equity. There's a lot of strong reputational power that product had, that brand has. They're going to launch their new Ferrari EV with a new electric axle motor and battery pack set to be made in-house in its new factory. Super big red lights or flashes going on there indicating that this is new for the firm. This is a new product for the firm. And they're creating a new factory, there are all new components to it, so this is going to be very discontinuous it's a new adoption, a new thing the firm is doing, but it's going to cause them a lot of change, right? So if you think internally, should we do this? There's gonna be the company's gonna be slow to adopt this new thing, because it's obviously requiring a lot of capital and so forth. Get this though, it's gonna go 0 to 62 miles an hour in 2.5 seconds. That's pretty cool. That's not bad, I like that. With a top speed of 193 miles an hour. I could get home to work. 193, 6 miles, I don't know. That'd be nuts. Okay, the range on a single charge for the battery will be 329 miles. I have no idea if that's good or not. It sounds good, I don't know if it is, or whatever. The company won't reveal what the model looks like until next spring, with delivery slated to be later in 2026. All right, the debut comes as the global auto industry adjusts to slower transitions to EVs than expected. Okay, that's code for the rate of adoption is slower than they anticipated. So if you take the product category as a whole and you look at either the product life cycle or just a sales chart over time, it's slower, it's lower, and it's not curving up as quickly as experts expected it to, right? That's the translation, probably with that. And other sports car manufacturers have delayed their work, citing demand. Okay, so that's fine. Company said EVs would account for 20% of its vehicle lineup by 2030. Cool. So this is not a small thing they're thinking about. 20% of your business is a pretty good portion of your business portfolio, right? And they anticipate 2030, we're in 2025, aren't we? So, I mean, I used to think 2030 was a long time from now. But my goodness, it's in 5 years. 20% of their portfolio will be, their sales will be made up of electric vehicles in the next 5 years. Is what they're thinking. It does say, however, that this is approximately half the share previously indicated. So they anticipated, if I understand that correctly, they projected that they would have 40% of their units of their sales from EVs. Now that's being pushed down to 20%. So still big percentages, right? We know this path is not easy. But we also know that we, as a leader, needed to show the entire world that we can harness this technology. This is a super important statement for them and for the listener. Their DNA, their personality, they view themselves as the leader, as a leader. They don't view themselves as followers, as in a product category, in technology, in anything. And this is one of the things that this week's reflection, I think you'll pick up on a little bit maybe, that to be an innovator, you have to accept risk. To be the leader, to be an innovator, to be the first person out the door, you have to be willing to accept the risk that the product might fail, or that you have to make the market and that might take a long time, or you have to put a ton of money into a brand new factory and you might not see a return on this product for 10 or 15 or 20 years, right? I mean, that's this long-term perspective, but they clearly think of themselves as, well, if it's going to get done, it's going to get done by us because we're the leaders and we're going to make it happen. And again, it's not insignificant that that phrase is used, we're the leader, two lines above where Porsche, Lamborghini, and McLaren are all delaying their plans. So if Ferrari's moving forward and pushing ahead, and they're the leader, then what does that make Porsche and Lamborghini and McLaren? I mean,
Laggards.
kind of followers at least in the perspective of this article, right? Only, the way this is written. So I think this is kind of, like, if you want to really know a company, start thinking about how they're positioning themselves, how they view themselves. And there's no, I'm pretty sure if you go to, is it Maranello? If you go to Ferrari, they're going to think of themselves as the leaders. Anyways, the Ferrari Electrica is one of 20 models set to launch through 2030, more than previously planned. So they're launching a bunch of new vehicles, not just EVs. Bunches of new models are coming out. This is remember that new product, one of those product line development things where you're creating new products that are extensions of your existing product base. So that's another way that they're expanding. That's another form of innovation that they're doing. Their stock is kind of doing that. All right, down below, EVs pose a particular challenge for luxury sports cars, which say roar and rumble are central to their identities and appeal. Ferrari, perhaps more than any other automaker, has built its brand on internal combustion engines, of course. So part of you were thinking about Ferrari, the sound of the car, like Harley Davidson, the sound of the bike, is part of their identity. You can't think of Ferrari and not think red and yellow, right? It's part of their identity. So the new car, this is actually really interesting, I thought, and I don't know what you all think, but their new EV won't mimic engine sounds like some of their competitors have. Instead, what they're going to have is an electrical or electric engine sound and amplify it in the cabin to give the driver feedback when required. This is kind of interesting. So, electric cars don't make any noise. They're virtually soundless, right? And this is kind of a problem with motorcycles. Like when motorcycles, you want people to hear you because you might get hit if people don't hear you. So one of the big appeals of a Harley is it's loud and people know you're there and they avoid you, right? If your vehicle is silent and people rely on hearing things in their environment, then that could cause a problem. So what EV companies can do is they'll simulate the sound of a car, simulate the sound of the engine. So as a driver, you know it's on, and people around you might also hear it. Does that make sense? Also, and I don't think this is a small thing, I mentioned automatics and manuals earlier. I don't know how many of you drive a manual or have, right? Part of driving a manual is listening to the engine. If you listen to the engine, you'll know when to shift, and you can feel the vehicle. If you're in an electric car and you don't hear the engine, you're not really connected with it. Yeah.
Well, later in this reading, it does say that Ferrari would give something from its electric engine to have it resonate with the driver up front, so then they would be more knowledgeable of when to shift if you did switch it over to the paddle. I'm assuming the electric would be paddle shift, so
I've got to believe that there would be. It's really not shifting, but it definitely is a power thing, right? When you're powering up the car, kind of. I'm guessing.
Yeah, but it did say in here that it was going to have something that would tell the driver from the electric engine to let him know when.
Gives you a sense, of maybe a vibration or a sound or something. Yeah. It's interesting. I love what they say here, though. These people they're smart. They just are. Ferrari, perhaps more than any other automaker. Oh wait, I already read that. Sorry. Down below. Okay, the company compared the difference between its conventional sports car and the EV to the difference between an acoustic and electric guitar. What a beautiful analogy. That's just so them. Who can complain about the benefits and the power of an electric guitar? But an acoustic guitar just has a mellow, beautiful sound, right? What?
Sounds way better. An acoustic sounds significantly better.
They both have pros and cons. You can do a lot more with an electric. You can you know? I mean, they're just, so, but the distinction is that, you know, like today, can you imagine a world without electric guitars? Could you imagine a world today without electric guitars? What would Jimi Hendrix be on an acoustic? I mean, you've got to be, seriously?
If Jimi Hendrix were to do a live album with an acoustic, it'd be that much more impressive for the things that he could do on it.
I don't know. Clapton plays both, and he's a virtuoso.
That's true.
Did you ever see Joe Bonamassa?
Did you ever see there's a documentary, there's stuff on him as a little kid. I don't know if you've ever seen that. He was literally 8 or 9 years old. He was shredding it.
Yeah, he's way better than Clapton.
He's something. Okay, so anyways, EVs won't sound, blah, blah, blah. A promise, okay, so this is so think about innovation. Think about they're bringing out a product that there's a little bit of risk involved, right? You know, if you're spending $250,000 on a car, you know, what is in your decision set here? Are you willing to do this or not? They talk about the super fans of Ferrari, the people who have like 30 and 40 Ferraris, that, yeah, they're going to buy one. They're not going to buy one, but most people aren't most Ferrari buyers aren't like that, right? Just in general. So, you know, what's the risk here? They worry about the battery life, the battery replacement plans, things like that. So promises, and a Ferrari is promised to be timeless. You know, it will last a lifetime. And think about that brand, is it may appreciate faster in time than any other types of things. Most cars depreciate pretty quickly until they become an antique 30 years later, and then they depreciate slower. Ferraris may not. The top models retain their value over time, like Rolex watches and Hermes bags, right? So this is a little bit of a concern. Okay, my only hesitation is reliability. So this is a perceived risk type thing, since it will involve so much new technology. So there's a risk perception, again, in the innovation that this buyer is talking about. Ferrari started dabbling with the technology on the racetrack in 2009. Hybrids account for almost half of its output. So that's, I think, interesting too. So hybrids are a big part of it. Okay, Vigna said Ferrari would apply lessons that it learned from its hybrids to its EVs. We won't sell our electrics without considering the expiration date of the batteries. Okay, and Ferrari last year launched 2 extended warranty programs to counter concerns that hybrid components wouldn't age as well as its engines. Yeah, so will it stand the test of time? I mean, you expect good quality luxury products to last forever. That's why you buy them. That's why they're there. They retain their value extremely well. And so how about this warranty program? Remember we had this idea, of product augmentations or services that we can add to the core product or add to the actual product to help enhance the consumer's use of the product, to make the product easier to use. That's what augmentations do. They, in this case, help diminish the perception of risk. Like if you're fearful that the battery is going to die prematurely, or that there's going to be this type of expense that comes up, we can take away that risk by offering you a warranty package where we'll replace the battery as that need comes up. Right? So again, risk slows down the rate of adoption. If I can take that risk out, then it will help speed the rate of adoption. See how so we're changing that curve by modifying elements of the product in order to get people to adopt the product faster. It's basically the idea of what we want to go after here, connecting the dots. All right, so you kind of have an idea of what's going on here. The financier from Citi, it says that it's somewhat surprising that Ferrari is going ahead. A Citi analyst, Harold Hendricks, overall demand for those cars are minimal. And my comment is, yeah, but it's Ferrari and they're a leader, right? Here's the thing. If leaders don't lead, what happens? I mean, if no company takes that step forward, will anybody take that step forward? I guess this is a good question. And you know, I mean, yeah, Ferrari or whatever company is out there, Tesla, how much risk has Tesla exposed themselves to, right? I mean, you can say whatever you want about the owners and Tesla and blah, 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 but without that innovation, would we today have the electric vehicle market that we have?
No.
Probably not. I mean, that takes some guts to do that.
It's went bankrupt early on.
All that risk. So this week's reflection talks a little bit about that. If you're an innovator, so one of the ideas here is that if you're an innovator, you have to expose yourself to a lot of risk. If you're going to do something new in a market, you have to take the risk of that on. Now, here's the carrot at the end. This is the reward. If you're the first in, if you're Tesla and you create a market for electric vehicles, for a period of time, you are the only one selling those cars. You've made the market. So Tesla has their charging units, right? And you can't use those charging units unless you have a deal with them, unless you work through them, right? So in a way, Tesla, in the early days especially, could act like a monopolist. They can control the market. They can control the price because they're the ones selling the product. They brought the product into the market. They control 99% of the market share. You know, if you buy an electric vehicle, 10 years ago, it's going to be a Tesla. It's not going to be anything else probably. There's going to rarely be anything else. And if it was something else, you couldn't charge it anywhere. So the practice is, if you're the innovator for a period of time, you get to control the market. Companies that control markets are called monopolists. And we are I don't want to say 100%, but we're okay with that because that's their reward. Why do, with pharmaceutical companies have patent rights. Why do we issue patent rights to pharmaceutical companies? To give them monopoly power, to give them protection, to give them an opportunity so that nobody else can steal their technology and their market prematurely. Now, eventually that goes away, but they are afforded monopolistic power in those circumstances, in those situations, right? And generally speaking, that's the way it goes. And so that's what this article talks about this, because monopolists are damaging, right? Monopolistic behaviors and powers, they stifle competition, they hurt consumers. Ultimately, they're really, really bad for free market enterprising. But yet there are circumstances when it happens and when we allow it. Okay, so you guys want to take a short break? Take a real short break, 10-minute break. How about that? 8:10, maybe come back, and then we'll wrap things up over another hour or so. All right, we're good? Yeah.
So, my sister just flew international, and she flew at 15. I know I should have played. I think we're in traffic on the way here. So I apologize. But am I
She can't Uber.
Well, we live in Little River. I was going to say, that's a 50-minute Uber. That'd be pricey.
The only steak and shake in this whole area is at the airport. If I was at the airport, I'd be happy to I'm giving.
No, I know.
Thank you. And then bring her back, because we'll
Right.
still be. I hope she has a good time. Where's she flying from?
New York, right outside Syracuse.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I'm from.
I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
So big pharma, I think my husband, you know, big pharma funds over digital send. Yeah, they do. So when I retired, you know, I have a lot of medications because I'm old. So when I retired, and I don't have my insurance anymore, my hormone replacement, which keeps me from not killing everybody in this classroom, used to be $50 for 3 months. And the first month I went to get it, it was over $200. That's like 10% of my social security check.
It's a big jump, isn't it?
So if you think that if you take 7 medications, that is your entire social security check.
That is daunting.
Isn't
to say
it?
the least. To say
You
the
better
least.
put a lot of money in your 401k.
I'm banking on my kids. That's what I tell them anyways.
That's what I thought too.
My kids are gonna get good jobs. Or I'm just not gonna stop. I'll be not be able to remember. I already can't remember what we're doing, but.
Do you know what I have to do now that I'm 75?
I don't.
I have to Google everywhere I go in Google Maps because I'll be driving and go, where the fuck am I? Like I forget where I'm going. Do you think I'll make it through the MBA program?
I have to Google.
Oh, it's just
There's
one
so
at a
many-
time.
There's so many accidents.
Oh,
So
I
many
use
accidents.
every day.
I have to check just to get home. 90 is a mess.
Yeah, but you get on the road and go, where am I going and where is it? And how do I get there?
Every day.
Like there's like one road to get any major direction.
Is anybody else freezing in here? It's like 20 degrees.
It's like one of those weird times where they may still have the air on and it's kind of in between. During the day, they need a little air, but at night it gets chilly.
I'm frozen.
So it's kind of like that.
So you know when you were talking about go back and new to the world, really new products,
Yeah.
and you said if you saw one of these in your lifetime,
If you made one anyways, yeah.
I saw all of those. I can remember the day that Chris Triplett brought his Sony Walkman to the beach in Marblehead, Mass. Sony Walkman, and nobody had ever seen it. He was the first one with it. And we all just sat and listened to that all day.
Sony had a string of innovations during the late 70s, early 80s. That was really fun, actually.
I think someone.
But what I was thinking about for being a, what did you call it? The late bloomers that don't do anything. The late to the party.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I bought 2 sets of those earbuds and I had to return them because I could never figure out how to work it.
Oh, really?
So I just went and bought Skull Crusher headphones.
You won't catch
If you don't have teenagers living with you, you can't do anything. I'm thinking about adopting a foster kid to mow the lawn and help me with the computer. And cook.
Don't tell them that.
I just got off the opposite day.
Well, I mean, he'd live in a nice house. He'd live in a nice house and I'd get him a car and.
3 hots in a cot.
Right? It's better than
Is
jail.
that the standard for fostering? I feel like I've seen things about this.
I have 5 TVs and I don't know how to turn any of them on.
Put that on there too.
Huh?
Put that on there too. I have 5 TVs. 3 hots cot, 5 TVs, unmowed lawn.
Wow.
Back to that equation.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's driving me nuts. So the innovator, couldn't you you lay out your total addressable market and you know that the innovator population, generally speaking, is around 2.5% of the market. There's no way you're gonna be able to target with like a direct marketing campaign like those innovators. Like you're not gonna be able to capture all 2.5%. Because they are innovators.
Yeah, I mean, there are people who are already entrepreneurs. Who already have a strong interest in reach out to you already. They're on their own, you know, or
I think
they are super active on your community fan pages, like your TikToks. I mean, they're very active in that product category space. So, yeah, reach out to them first with a limited campaign. In fact, what a lot of companies do before the product's launched or pre-launch, they'll reach out to them a few months before the product launches. They'll try to get the product into their Yeah, in fact, that product lifecycle chart or that sales chart, it almost never starts in zero. At the origin, it usually starts a little up. So the line usually starts up a little bit, doesn't start down there. Specifically.
What usually comes first, the chicken or the egg? Like, you would start marketing the product before it's ready to come to like you actually like commit to bringing that product to market, or you bring the product to market and then you start like your marketing campaign?
Oh, by the time you start promoting the product ahead of time, generally speaking. We're about to do a product development process, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But it's part of the pre-launch, like before you launch the product, you'll have a timeline where you start hitting the media before, yeah, and I don't know what that is. I mean, we're hearing stuff now about Ferrari's electric vehicles they're launching in Europe. They're hitting the market a year from now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no mystery. I mean, I'm sure they've got people telling stories. This reason why we're reading about them today is probably because it's something Ferrari did. They're telling stories somewhere. They'll be at the car shows. Oh yeah. Think about movies. Like how early do you see trailers on the movie before? Once you're committed to launching the product, and you pretty much know what the product is or have solid benchmarks.
Maybe like, oh, let's change it.
Even like trailers.
No, es fea. Es fea. Fea y gorda. Chao.
You like want to see it actually in the final cut.
Él es más viejo. Mucho más viejo que yo.
You might be too old.
No.
Yeah.
You said you were comparing against other like competitors.
No va a decir que no. Va a decir que sí. Va a decir que sí.
How do you feel like have like a new innovation that like you haven't seen? You just compare that like the build up of it.
¿Dónde está la cosa llena de tu agua?
Where it was like the after like for the new innovation people. The second is that I think comparing that like against other brands that have like the same build up for their product. If you have like just a new idea, like
So when we talk about that parameter specifically,
Is it good?
how to acquire that?
against other competitors,
I would say it's
there's just totally different.
Okay.
Nobody has the same innovation as you.
work with.
Yeah, well, so that model
Not really.
is efficient in the sense that the reality is it will change over time. So like you may have that has to do with the influence that people have
We're promo.
on
We are.
pretty strong.
We're like, well,
let's say a failure to add a dream boat.
Just thinking.
And I do too. So it's like, you're the only one around, like, if you're talking about electric vehicles, 10 years ago.
It's like 1 month. Are you okay? 1 month makes sense. Guys, I'm tired. I don't know.
Today, everybody has an electric vehicle pretty much, in some regions.
Guess
So
what time she said?
the chatter about Tesla's
What
launch
time?
was relative
Tomorrow.
So that component of the model, while very strong 10 years ago,
That's like kind of average.
well, you can recalculate it. You can probably, so what I would do, I've never done this. What I would probably do is, so these figures in here are built.
No way.
And what I would probably do is diminish this value
Like starting off higher and then slowly work it down.
That's probably what I would do if I suspected that was going to be the issue. Now, it would take a little bit of trial and error, you have to think about it a little bit. Because that's, again, one of these issues, in the original model, these don't change. But over 20 years, you know they're going to. I mean, and again, this value here, in the 90s, what might have been low, now, I should do a study on this, because it's probably really high with social media and stuff.
There's a lot of shreds in
She said with Ella.
Yeah, but this year was like not
Ella, sí.
6.
No.
Oh, you've been here forever.
Yeah, no, I'm still technically.
Oh my goodness.
Like, excited.
This is too long. So what happened is this has to be.
I mean, I can applied knowledge.
How old are you?
May 21. I'm smart adjacent.
I've never heard that term.
It just depends.
You should pass.
I should. It's
Moreno.
No.
It's not something, it's not interpreted.
Well, I mean,
Oh, yeah, no, that's
Sí, muy.
right. I mean, this is 6 periods. This life cycle is 6 periods. And it's just kind of weird the way
then I'll have my
this
undergrad, my bachelor.
this is here.
So when you're like allocating like a budget towards your marketing credits, like your overall marketing plan, it's like
Right.
could you say like, okay, I know, based on this model, I know how many lives we need to reach in order to have the effect that we want to have. Once we reach second innovators, we can start.
I am. To be fair, you just figure out what
Yeah, so what?
Don't say it. Forget it.
So,
not if you love it. Like, I'm gonna be teaching.
I know.
Listen,
so,
I've done it. I
you know,
am.
you have
It's
a
a fact.
marketing budget, it's only gonna be based on like the
That's the plan.
So the goal would be to identify how
Want to be like.
That's the goal.
That's the
So we should have a good idea.
I don't worry about that. I'm not
Well,
No, but here's the thing.
so like from one where?
But
Then also.
Absolutely.
I'm not How long you got married? You got married.
So we're from 12 steps.
Once it gets started, it spreads on time.
This is the big
Yeah, as long as it looks good, you can see it. So like, we really worry about, say.
Like if a tractor trailer was barreling down, I'd call my wife in front of the truck to say.
Okay, well, I get that, however, you know, okay, so.
And I think she's
So here's.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it, when you start saying bad stuff.
When you're,
I did it. Counteract it.
Yeah, but now,
start, talking about finances, talking about.
I mean,
So when you have children,
I've
you
done
know, two people parent, you know what happens, you know, kids.
no.
You know, it's like marriage.
No worries. I thought it
None of them.
You've got to.
Wild disagreements with the
Where's brother
Ever. There was no way that had green light from 16 to 9. It was 100% an ad agency working with InBev, out of New York, California. And they had this idea.
Wait, so you're saying it wasn't even your in-house?
There's no way
That's just like zero. Zero job like that. I mean, that, I didn't even know that was a thing. So like they have a marketing department that uses like.
No, not 13 kids.
They work in kind of like it's weird too, like your team knows your culture, that's why you have it.
Media is pretty popular to outsource. Media is
Her mother.
creating content.
So she
That's a pretty specialized skill that nearly all production studios.
So is that like the executives like making a phone call and push the second page or like doing this? They just like go direct to some third party?
They have to be like, yes, to stay in the UK.
Bush said do this.
Anheuser-Busch wasn't
Yeah, I mean, there was
On their own, until they were 1974.
and they got, they got fired. So now.
Well, so, yeah. Well, in my family,
It was a very simple.
yeah, there was no question
That's rare.
because.
But now, actually, it's kind of funny because Bud Light,
So we thought about it, how the kids, he couldn't care less if they went to talk, he couldn't care less if they did really.
And I don't know, it's like.
So we've been married 30 years. And I didn't get divorced.
No, yeah, every one is like, it's like 30s and 60s.
I'm silly.
Well, because he cheated for years, and when he left, I was so crazy because.
But I almost bought. I haven't yet though, but it's almost
Where you go?
Yeah, and they're hoping that.
You do, it's Conway.
It's science, man. A lot of people with science out there.
It's
All right, let's,
Do you know any of the?
it's been a few minutes.
Do you know Bubba Truitt and his wife?
Let's go another hour or two and then we'll wrap this up, right? Gonna go overdrive. Fired up, right? Fired up. Ready to go. Okay, so importantly, there's a process. It's a well-coordinated, well-designed process for developing products. Some companies go through this very rapidly. Some companies that do product development a lot, though, have a really, really focused organized system for developing products. And there's a whole bunch of steps involved in it. I've created this sort of flow chart, if you will. We are not going to go through all the different components of this tonight. I used to teach an entire semester-long class on product development. So trust me, there's all kinds of moving parts that can happen. But keep in mind that the origin of a new product needs to be focused from and based upon some type of strategy, or typically a growth strategy that you have an idea about. Your company wants to develop a new market. They want to develop some new cash flows. They want to expand their base. They want to better serve their existing market. There are all these different things we might want to do, and they could use the tool of developing a new product as the vehicle to do that with. So the strategy that kicks this off has to be what it is. So market product grid, we've talked about how many products we have serving what markets. That could be something that's motivating us. The desire to modify or change your product line or mix, your portfolio of products. We talked about product portfolios earlier. That could be something that motivates this as well. Resource-based theory of the firm and of competition, firm resources. This is a big one that I really want you to think about a little bit. Like, you have as a firm particular skills and resources that lend themselves to developing new products. Ferrari has a vision and they have leadership. They've got enormous brand equity. They're a very powerful company, but they needed the resource of the factory to be able to create electric vehicles. In the article, it does talk about how they brought over a design engineer from Apple to help with some of their design features. So they were missing a few of the resources or the skill sets they would have needed to create an electric vehicle, but they acquired those. Now they have those resources and they can build the product. You can't build products if you don't have the resources. That's a big thing to think about. So firm strategy starts this off. Moving forward, we have to recognize there are opportunities that would be capitalized upon if we had a product or a new product that would do that. So are there new trends or new opportunities in the market that are evolving? The market's evolving. We have customers who have new needs and new wants. Are there opportunities there to serve them? Are there opportunities to create a product that outperforms the competitors? Are competitors' products inferior in a particular marketplace? And can we bring a product that has greater relative advantage? Remember, relative advantage, that's a big key thing that helps promote adoption, right? Are there opportunities here where we do have or we've acquired new resources so we can do new things with these new resources? We can create new products, reach new markets with these things that we have, these abilities that we have. Okay, so strategy drives the process. Opportunity identification is next. From this, we start conceptualizing products. We start thinking about what the product is going to be. We're going to talk a little bit about what makes a product from this perspective, from product development perspective, and this context of firm resources and market opportunities here just in a minute. So generate concepts. What'll happen is we'll look at an opportunity and we may come up with 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 products that are ideas. They're just concepts of products. So like brainstorm, right? We'll brainstorm a bunch of ideas and we'll say, well, look, we can make this and this and this, right? So we'll have 20 or 30 or 40 ideas for products which then need to be evaluated. And they're going to be evaluated in two ways. One, they're going to be evaluated inside the firm for their feasibility. So some product ideas cost too much. Some product ideas are not feasible because we can't get the raw materials. Some we can't do because we don't have a factory to do them in. But others will be more likable. People across the company will be more in favor of them. They'll have better, they'll have a better financial outlook. They'll be more in line with what we do. Okay, so naturally, after we brainstorm and come up with 50 different product ideas, some of them will wash out, some of them will retain. Those ones that we retain, what we'll start doing is start building a concept, and we'll start doing some early consumer testing. We typically call this a concept test. The internal screen is that internal analysis, do some sales forecasting internally to make sure that this is going to work. But when we go to the market, we'll do a survey or we'll do some type of instrument where we explain the concept to the customer and we measure how willing they would be to buy the product. And we ask them some research questions like that to gauge the consumer response. Okay, this is the very first thing, and it's just a concept at this time, and we may have 10 different product ideas that we're concept testing all at the same time. Okay, and again, it doesn't move forward until we agree that this product from a company's perspective is going to work, and also there's some sense that in the market it will be accepted by consumers. Okay, so this could take a little bit, right? But this is a stage gate process. You don't move from one step to the next until it's passed. If we don't pass this, we don't move a concept forward. Okay, keep in mind, when we're doing product development, every single day that we're developing, we're spending money. And we're spending money, and we're spending money. And we are not bringing in any money at all until we start launching that product. So if it takes us 3 years to develop a product, we're spending money for 3 years, and we don't see a dime of revenue until we actually launch the product, right? So let's say we have a product idea, and we take it all the way to the end, and the product fails. Well, we've lost all that sunk cost. All that money we spent on that product, we've lost, right? So we don't want to move a product idea that's going to fail. We want to make sure it is going to be a winner to the best of our ability as far as we possibly can. And products that fail a lot of times fail because they're not tested. They're not tested in the market. They don't do this process. Okay? Products that do this process typically have a better success rate. Okay, so once we move the product past the concept phase, we start doing prototypes. We start developing the product physically, if it's a product, or the process, if it's a service. And we start testing, making sure the materials work. We'll do prototype testing, beta testing. We'll get the products out for consumers to use, right? So this is testing step 2. So we're developing the product physically. We're laying out the production. We're sourcing the raw materials. All of those things that have to happen to create a product we're doing so that we have a working product from a working facility, and we've got it all done. We may do a product use test. So we'll do a prototype test in-house, we'll do a prototype out-of-house, externally with consumers, and we may do a product use test where customers are using the product on a daily basis, and we're making sure the product works and is acceptable and it's what they like. All right? While we're doing that, a parallel process is we're developing the media, the marketing, the pricing campaigns, the strategies that we're going to use in what you might call the 4 Ps, how we're going to distribute the product, what retailers it's going to be in, how we're going to brand it, the branding, the name, the color logos, the packaging. All those types of things are happening in concert with and at the same time as the product's being developed. Okay, so, right? Then towards the end of this process, the third stage of testing happens, where we will ideally bring the product to a small market and we'll do a market test. So we do a limited run production, so it's not full production, but it's a limited run. We choose a geographic space. You know test markets? Have you ever heard of test markets? There are certain test markets. The popular ones today, and they don't change that much. Columbus, Ohio is a popular test market area. Indianapolis, Kansas City, San Antonio, Nashville, and Charlotte. So why are those popular test markets? Well, when you look at the populations, the MSAs do pretty good job representing a whole composite of the United States population, right? You'll find a fair diversity that represents the whole pretty well among those six spaces, six cities. They're also fairly reasonable price-wise to buy media in. So you could take your product, put it in Charlotte for a month or two and see what the sales are like. Okay, so why is it a test market though? What are we testing? We're testing our marketing plan. We're testing our pricing. We're testing how we're advertising. We're testing the retailers. We're testing how the product's being distributed. Are all of those systems working properly? And are we achieving the rate of sales that we would expect? Like, are we selling as many units as we would expect for that size of a market, right? Are we effectively bringing the product to market in Charlotte? If not, then maybe we change our strategy a little bit. Maybe we tweak our plan a little bit. What we might also do is we may run the product in Charlotte and we may run the product in Indianapolis simultaneously, and we may actually use two different marketing plans, slightly nuanced, to see which performs better. All right, we can do that, no problem. That's the idea of a market test, and that's kind of a big thing. All right, so if you do a concept test, if you do all your work internally screening the product, if you put the product if you start developing the product and you do prototype testing, if you run a limited run of your product and you bring it to a test market for a small period of time, you're going to have a pretty good idea if this product's going to be successful or not, right? I mean, you'll have a pretty good idea because you'll have sales data, so you can project sales. You get a good idea of how much you spent, so you understand what your costs are. I mean, you'll know pretty well what's going on. Okay, but this is the process to go through. Again, lots of little steps in between, all kinds of fun things to do as you're moving through those. Each of those different stages is, we call it a go or no-go thing. We sometimes call it a stage gate process, where you hit a stage and there's a gate. You have to get past the gate before you go to the next stage, those types of things. There's always going to be pressure to accelerate the time, and there is a process of like rapid prototyping and going through things super fast. So while you want to go very quickly and you want to get the product to the market as fast as you can, you still need to do the steps. You can do the steps fast. I'm not saying you can't do the steps fast and quickly, but you have to do the steps. And the better you do the steps and the more rigorous you are on them, the fewer product failures you will eventually have. There's a concept called a fuzzy front end or a fuzzy gate concept too. But some of these processes can slow you down. A fuzzy front end or a fuzzy product concept is when you have a product idea, but it's really hard to explain. or it's really hard to understand until the product is developed. Like, I have a really good idea, but I don't know how to show it to you until I actually build the product. That's a fuzzy inference that happens, right? We may not know exactly what this product is going to be, but we may push the product forward because we're pretty confident that it'll be okay, that it'll be good, that'll be solid. Incidentally, if we push the product faster, we may save a little money, but we can't get to a point where we have to move forward because of this inertia that's there. Okay, so anyways, those are some things. Product concept. This is the last thing I really want to kind of spend some time talking about. I feel like this is important. There are 3 components to a successful product. And incidentally, I know in a couple weeks we're going to start our projects. Your project will be focused on developing a new product for a company. So some of the concepts we have here will play into that towards the end of the project, in the third part of the project. But there are 3 components here that, and I love this model actually, I love this a lot, conceptualizing what's needed in a product. There has to be some type of a benefit for the market. Okay, so like, let's say you have a great product idea, you build a product and it looks great, but it doesn't solve a customer's problem, or the customers don't really want it. Okay, you built something that's awesome, but the customers don't want it. What have you really done, right? I mean, right, so benefit has to be there. There has to be a technology involved. So when we think about a technology, it's the thing that's going to make it's gonna be the thing that makes the benefit realized. An example I use for this is a flashlight. Like, people need to see light, right? Or lights in the room, right? We want to see, right? We want to see, so we have the lights. So the benefit is, the thing that we're gaining here is visual acuity, we're able to see, we have light. So what is the technology that can create light? Oh, well, you could think about this. Like, back in the day, you'd light a candle. And the candle would provide the technology, be the technology that provides the benefit of light. What about a torch, a really big candle, a torch? What about a lantern? What about an incandescent bulb? These are all different technologies. What about an LED? What about a fluorescent, right? What about a laser beam? What about, I don't know. What about, you know, like those fish that glow in the dark? I don't know what that fluorescent stuff is. What about that? That glows. That creates light. I don't know. So in other words, the technology is what enables or creates the benefit that can then be used by the customer. The firm has to have this. This is what the firm has to have. They have to have this capability or resource available to them in order to deliver it in the benefit. And then finally, we have to have the form. If I said we want illumination, you can think of like a flashlight, you can think of a candle, the lantern, and these are all different forms that encompass or that contain the technology that delivers the benefit. Does that make sense? So there's like these 3 interwoven concepts, and there's a new product in the middle. You have to have all 3 of these. If you are lacking one of these, we can't build a product, right? So if you're building a new product for a company, the company has to have the resources to have that technology, to create that technology or enable that technology. There has to be a market that is accepting of that need or that benefit that's going to be produced. And it has to be delivered in some way or form. Okay, so the need, benefits the customer. Technology is a source by which the form is to be obtained. The form is a physical thing that creates, or for a service, a set of steps that service will be created. And this is the takeaway that I think is worth thinking about here. Technology permits us to develop a form that provides the benefit. Form represents the attributes or dimensions the product takes on. And so, yeah, you kind of get the idea, right? I mean, in terms of some of this. I got an example, ammonium nitrate. What are some uses for the base chemical ammonium nitrate? Oh, we're almost out of time, right? Ammonium nitrate expands rapidly, all kinds of cool things. Makes things grow, creates heat, creates cold, makes you feel lightheaded and laughing gas. So this is a technology. Maybe there's a need of cold beverages. And so we could brainstorm and think of how many different products we can come up with that solves the problem of creating cold beverages using the technology of ammonium nitrate. You can have, like ice packs, like cold packs. If you get injured in a game or something, you have an ice pack, bang it, and you mix up the chemicals. It gets cold, right? What if we had a cooler that you wrapped on when you needed a cold beverage, or maybe the can, that you hit it once on the bottom and it gets cold for you automatically. What if you had a cooler of some type and you flipped a switch and it created, it mixed this chemical together and it got cold for you, out in the field somewhere, right? We could brainstorm for a long time and think of these things, but we're out of time, so we're not going to be able to. All right, so you got a great last reflection coming up this next week. Our content for next week, again, covers a lot. It's using the marketing mix to gain competitive advantages. Do y'all have any questions? There's a lot tonight. There's so much in this area, but it's an exciting area. I love talking about new products. We'll see you guys next week. Let me know if you have any questions, though, for sure.
So do you want to hear something really funny?
I do.
I asked AI what was the longest product in product development.
Oh, seriously? Yeah.
Do you know what it is?